Beautiful music in this church. Oh, it's my pleasure to be here with you today. A mother knocked on the door of her son's bedroom and said, get up, it's time to go to church." And he yelled back, "I'm not going today." And she said, "Yes, you are." And he said, "No, I'm not. I don't like them and they don't like me." And she said, "Well, I'm going to give you 2 reasons why you're going. You're 47 years old and you're the pastor." I stayed last night in the lovely home of Kay and Terry Johnston. And Kay did not have to knock on my door this morning and tell me to get up because I was eager to come and meet new friends. I just want to look at you for a moment and take you in and take in your energy. Thank you for being here. If you weren't here, I wouldn't need to be here today. Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Last week, Reverend Charles began a study of Robert Brummett's book, Birthing a Greater Reality. And I understand some of you are studying that on Wednesday nights. Brummett writes in the first chapter, "About 100 years ago, you became Homo sapiens sapiens, not just wise man, but wise man. You began to understand that you understand. You became aware that you were aware. You began to discover your own wisdom and power and beauty. And now you are starting to discover what you really are. You are beginning to awaken from the dream." So I thought today that we could talk about the evolution of that wisdom and power and beauty in each of us. And wherever I go, I like to bring a handout so that you can follow along with me. I was a licensed Unity teacher before I became a minister, and I just can't get it out of my system. So in your bulletin, you will find a little insert if you care to follow along. Wisdom. Brummett writes, "Having acquired powers undreamed of by our ancestors, we seem in many ways godlike. But we have not evolved the wisdom needed to broker these powers." We have not evolved the wisdom to broker these powers of the divine. Now, what is this power of wisdom or this faculty of wisdom? Those of you who have followed the Unity path for quite some time are familiar of Charles Fillmore's 12 powers of man. And wisdom is one of those. What is wisdom anyway? It is the ability to discern, to decide, to make choice. It is the ability to take all the information that we have and to be able to come up with what is the next right step for ourselves. Wisdom is often confused with knowledge. And Immanuel Kant wrote that science is organized knowledge, but wisdom is organized life. Would you like a little organization in your life? Wisdom is the answer for that. This evolution of humanity began in the allegorical story of the Garden of Eden. And there, Adam and Eve evolved in consciousness to the point where they discovered the law of mind action. That's really what that discovery of the apple was all about. It was the discovery that thoughts held in mind produce after their kind. And the reverse of that means that wherever I am, well, God is, but it is exactly where I'm supposed to be. That's the reverse of the law of mind action. So whatever is happening in my life is an evolution of the thoughts that I have held over time in my life. Darn it. There is nothing that I detest more than being down in the rabbit hole and having some pious person come to me and say, Robin, you know that you put yourself there. I call that metaphysical malpractice. But the law is the law. And that means that indeed I did put myself there. As much as I might not want to think about it, as much as I might intellectually know it, but not want to have a heart relationship with my life, it is my life. So think about your life. Right now, wherever it is in the scheme of your life, either sickness or health, poverty or wealth, relationship or alone, despair or joy. Whatever it might be, all of those things are a spectrum, and we are all somewhere on that spectrum. And we are on that spectrum because of our own evolving journey of understanding. Wisdom is the ability for us to take what we know and use it. Wisdom is the ability to walk the talk that we speak. And sometimes that's a rocky road. It is not always easy to apply wisdom. We often would rather not know. It's much easier to be ignorant. That's why there's not a Unity Church on every corner and every Unity Church is not packed. Unity brings with it responsibility. It is not just a feel-good Pollyanna experience, but it is real life. So what is happening in your evolution of wisdom? Here's the trap. Something happens, we react. Life happens, we have energy around it. The coffee pot breaks. What do? There's a traffic jam. We have a judgment and energy about that. We receive 9 or 19 inches of rain in 36 hours. Bless our friends in South Carolina and Northeast Georgia. At my home in Northeast Georgia in the last week, we've received 9.5 inches of rain. You want to help those people? We said we did. Let's do it. You on for it? Are you on for it? Okay. So let's take a deep God breath. Which way is east here? Does anybody know where the sun comes up? Everybody's pointing in every direction.
If we all agree, that's what it is. So
okay.
There we go.
We're going to claim that sound booth back there is east. So let's all take a deep breath and let's send some positive energy to bust up that storm and move it on off of our friends from South Carolina. Deep breath and everybody out at one time. 1, 2, 3. In and Do you believe that will work? Yes. Do you believe that will work? Yes. Yes. If not, what the heck are we doing here? Yes. Thoughts held in mind produce after their kind. Yes, you can even control the weather in Birmingham. Yes. So when life happens, we believe that that energy that we feel is a result of what happens in life. Is that true? We believe it, but is it true? What happens outside of ourselves is our creation. We get to choose how we feel about it. We get to choose the energy that we bring to it. So when we see a crisis happening somewhere, we get to decide, are we going to buy into the energy of the crisis, or are we going to use our power of wisdom and put these positive principles that we study every week to use and bring some positive energy to that situation and that circumstance? And that applies even to the weather. We have work to do. We have work to do. And the world needs us to get to work. So we respond to circumstances and situations either by habit or by choice. We either decide that we're going to be helpless and we're going to succumb to whatever happens in our lives, or we're going to decide that we're going to be prayer warriors and we're going to stand firm and use the wisdom that is ours and make a difference. And when we step into that power, then we step into that place where we are all one. So think about where you are in your evolution of wisdom in your life. And then there's power. Power is the ability to pull it together and use those concepts to grow and to evolve. The highest use of the power of power, which sounds a little redundant, but that's the way Charles Fillmore taught it. The highest use of that is to grow and to evolve. You claim your power when you take control of your life, when you take control of your thoughts and your consciousness. Power is not to lord over someone else. It's not to try to control people or circumstances or situations. But it is to control the thoughts that you have about those situations and circumstances and people. It is about turning judgment into blessing. It is about rising above and claiming the highest thought in a situation. It is about asking someone to help you to reframe your thinking when you're down the rabbit hole. Power moves within our brains, and our brains are wired for change. Our brains are meant to change as much as all the circumstances around us change. And we need to practice changing our brains. We have to practice thinking new thoughts. I recently took up crossword puzzles. Historically, I've hated crosswords because I never could get the first one. It's kind of hard to complete it when you can't even get the first one. But the more that I practice, the easier it gets. And I'm discovering that by practicing with crossword puzzles, my mind is starting to think differently. it's creating new neuro pathways. I'm doing the ones that are easy, labeled easy. Sometimes it takes me 2 days and 2 online dictionaries, but I get it done. See, these neural pathways, I call them patterns of thought in our brains. The way we think actually, it etches grooves in the gray matter of our brains, physically. And that's why when something happens that you have a historical pattern around that thought, it triggers you, and no matter how much you don't want to react the same way, you react the same way. A nurse who's become addicted to pain medication will find it very difficult to return to work in the hospital environment even after months of rehab, because just the smell of the chemical environment will trigger her craving for the drug. Because she has a neuro pathway that tells her that when she smells that smell, she's going to feel like this. And the same is true for all of us in all the situations that we encounter. Power is learning how to find a different way, to build a different connection, one new thought at a time. Our spiritual practice of prayer and meditation is extremely useful in helping us to break that circuit. And hopefully you practice every day. I mean, if we want to be good at something, we need to practice, right? So meditation and making connection with the infinite consciousness doesn't happen without some effort. You know, unity is good stuff, but it does take some effort to work it. And when we go to that elevated place of consciousness that is above and beyond that monkey mind we hold, we have an opportunity to tap into the infinite. What does that mean, to tap into the infinite consciousness? The infinite consciousness knows everything. You know, we look at people who are creative and dynamic and inspiring, and we are in awe. But you are too. You are too. And making that connection to the infinite helps you know exactly what you need to know when you need to know it. And calling that into form is the way that you use your power. So everything in your internal world is about transferring. You know, you think that everything in your internal world is what's transferred from the outer into the inner. But let's reverse that. And let's go to that place of prayer and meditation and find the highest thought so that we can transfer out a better picture, a higher consciousness. So Charles Fillmore wrote about the mind. He said, "The starting point of every act and thought and feeling, it is the common meeting ground of God and man. The mind is the seat of perception of the things we see and hear and feel, and it is through the mind that we see the beauties of earth and sky and music and art, in fact, of everything." The mind. In the use of the mind, we can find the beauty of life. And it's there. I once was married to a man who sat with me at Christmas time in a mall, and he turned to me and he said, "Have you ever noticed how ugly everyone is?" I once was married to him. Because I looked at all those people and I did not see that. I saw beauty in them. In the hustle and the bustle of the Christmas season. And I found beauty in things that he could not. Beauty crosses our paths dozens, if not hundreds of times a day. Are we open to that? Are we open to the evolution of beauty within us? Have you ever, I have to remember this is a different stage. Have you ever tried to stand someplace you're not accustomed to in high heels? Oh, it's horrible. After all, it is holy ground, right? Have you ever looked through a knothole in a wooden fence? I had the opportunity to do that many times as a child. And my friends and I, we'd peer through a fence and see what we could see. You know, some things in the direct line of vision are very clear. But those things that are on the peripheral, they're fuzzy, aren't they? They're clouded and they're blurry and you can't quite make them out. And I would be looking through one knothole and my friend would be looking through another and we would be describing different things. But we're looking into the same field. If we want to evolve in consciousness, we have got to rise above the fence with the knotholes in it. We have to rise above and take a broader view. We have to take the Christ view, the higher consciousness, where we can see everything more clearly. Because when we confine ourselves to looking through just a peephole of life and become convinced that that's the only way that life is, then we really limit ourselves. And we are not acting as Homo sapiens sapien. There's no wisdom or power or beauty in just looking through a peephole. So what is your view? What is your view of your life? And what do you need to do to rise above those circumstances or situations or those people that are pulling you down to get a broader view so that you can be what you came here to be? And do you know what you came here to be? Do you know the song that you came here to sing? Do you know the service that you came here to do? One of my favorite authors, Oriah Mountain Dreamer, wrote a trilogy of books after the death of her friend, and the last one in the trilogy is called The Call. I love her work. It's very poetic. It's very clear. And it really sings to my heart. To me, it speaks to this idea of evolution. She writes, "The call is about finding the one thing you came here to say and saying it 1,000 different ways in your words, in your actions, and your choices, so you and the world can really hear it. It's about finding the end of the one thread that glows luminescent for you and following it faithfully to the time and the place, the here and the now, where you can weave it into the fabric of your life and so offer it to the world. It's not about getting it right. It's not about living your word perfectly. It's about coming into a lifelong relationship with the one word that you long to know, the one word that seems at times so easy for others to know and yet eludes you for most of your life. Out of your willingness to learn from weakness, you develop strength that you can offer to others. So don't hold back, Uriah says. When you find your word, when you are willing to let it find you, then let it guide you to do what you do and how you do it. Let it shape your choices and color your visions. Because the word that calls to you is not only what you need to go home, it is the awareness that the world needs you to embody so we can all go home together. It is God speaking to you and through you. It is what you are here to say. You see, evolution is really about discovering who you are. It's really about discovering why you are here. It's personal. And when you put all of that personal energy together, it becomes a collective. And then it moves humanity forward. And is it not a beautiful dream that people who come to unity, who are willing to allow themselves to step boldly into wisdom and power and beauty, become a part of that energy that moves humanity toward a better world? So let us take this energy that we have created together and take it deep into our heart space. Brummett writes in his work that conscious evolution and personal transformation are really the same thing. They're only separated by time. So let us declare that this is the time. This moment in you is the time that you climb over the fence, that you climb out of the rabbit hole, that you climb to a higher state of awareness and claim your word in your own evolution. Sweet Spirit, we know that we all want the same things. We all want beauty and health and abundance and love. And when we can find that common ground and know there is no lack, then we can outform through us the depth of your wisdom and your power and your beauty. And we become your hands and your feet, your eyes and your ears. And we evolve one person at a time. And so it is.